Hi there, this is Eshu. I'm the abbot here at Zenwest Buddhist Society. This Living Zen-podcast is just one of the many resources we've created at Zenwest to make Zen practice and training more available and accessible to people all over the world. Instructional videos, printable resources, and much, much more are also available on our website at www.zenwest.ca. If you're a regular listener, I'd love to hear from you. So please drop me an email at office@zenwest.ca and let me know who you are, how you got started, and what brought you to Zen. Everything we make available in person and online at Zenwest is only possible because of the support of our members and associates, people like you. If the efforts of our community are making a difference in your life, I'd like to invite you to show your support and take part in making it happen by becoming an associate or member of the Zenwest Sangha. You can do this by clicking the Join Us tab on our website at www.zenwest.ca. Thank you for your support, and thanks for listening. So today I'm not going to talk about one of the cases. I just want to talk generally about practice and about our community and how we're doing, how I'm doing, what's been going on in the Zen Center. Update, I guess. So there's been lots of changes lately. I've taken this new position outside of Zenwest, and that's a big change. I know that a lot of people, when they're not interacting with me directly in community in a sit or something like this, there's not a lot of clarity about what Eshu does. But it does seem like now that I'm not doing so much behind the scenes because I'm out doing other things, there's a lot of difficulty that's coming up in the Zen Center. Not just with practice. There's been some instability there. But I know that I've been doing this for a long time, and I know that we've got a lot of people here who have been engaging in this practice together for a long time. So the formal, physical aspect of this practice, I'm not terribly worried about. I feel like if I were to drop dead tomorrow and the house were to burn down, my hope would be that the community of practitioners have enough practice and enough depth in that practice that we would know enough to come together and sit. We have this whole form written down in documents, and now they're on Google Documents, and we can share them all over the cosmos and all that kind of stuff. So hopefully how we practice won't be lost. That's why we did it, frankly, so that we can continue to read and study and engage in this practice together. So, and as a community, one of the reasons that I felt okay to collaborate with the board and go outside of Zenwest to get some work was because I really feel like the community is a strong group of people who really care about each other, who are exploring and practicing in Sangha, in community together. And I've seen that demonstrated in a lot of different ways. We've had a lot of challenges over the years in Zenwest. There was a time where I was accused of exceeding my authority by the organization that we were affiliated with. I was called every manner of heretic and false teacher and all kinds of stuff by an organization that had a lot of strength behind it. And the community of people that practiced here in Victoria heard this and sat with this and explored this and looked at their own experience of who I am and what I teach and what this community has demonstrated. And we went through the whole process of that, and we ended up severing our relationship with that organization as a result. And for many years, our organization floated as an unaffiliated, questionable Dharma, Rinzai Zen gang. And there was strength in that. And all kinds of people from all different walks really questioned who we were and what we were doing and whether we were genuine and all kinds of stuff like that. But we practiced together and we continued to investigate this Dharma together. And as things shook out, we again found our feet and the truth will out, and we demonstrated our character. And now we, have made relationship with another tradition, and our place in the greater Sangha has been reestablished, and we're all reputable again. What magic that has been. And I joke about it, but I can't really... some of you were around for some of this, some of you weren't. Some of you were more involved with the board, and some of you weren't. And I can joke about it now. But at the time, these were periods of immense suffering. For me personally, and I think for the whole organization, there was a tremendous amount of suffering and angst and churning and questioning and self-doubt and all kinds of things going on. But we come back to what is it that our experience and practice is together. So my big concern right now, the phrase that came up to me, has been coming up to me over the past week. I found it really surprising because I haven't read the sutra that it comes from in a long time. It comes from the Brahma Net Sutra, which is it's a Chinese sutra which is all about ethics, and some of it's really wacky. I mean, it's really like the Chinese. It's like a fusion of Chinese morality with Buddhism and Zen. And anyways, there's a line in it that talks about lions. And there's all kinds of metaphor for using lions in Buddhism. This posture that we sit in is often called the lion's posture because of the strength and the chest and the sort of fundamental nobility of this posture. Some of the Buddhas and the Buddha's greatest disciples' most sort of fundamental Dharma talks, Teisho, are referred to as the lion's roar. And so this is where it's like, it just goes beyond, it's a demonstration of the power of the Dharma, and it goes beyond the sort of linear conceptual words that are said and really sort of strikes the heart. Just like in the jungle, the lion's roar strikes the heart. It's not a logical thing. It's like, oh shit, that's a lion, right? Rinzai says the lion's roar splits the jackal's skull. Even this term that we use, bodhisattva, there's the longer phrase that's often used is bodhisattva, mahasattva. Sattva means being. Bodhi means awakening. It's the same root. Bud, it means to awaken or awake. So bodhisattva is awakening being. Sattva, again, is at the end of mahasattva, and maha just means great. And Buddhists were actually the first people who really used the term mahasattva to refer to a person. Because the term mahasattva means great being. And when it was traditionally used in the Indian culture, it referred to lions. Like we say, the king of the beasts, the great being, means lions. And so when the Buddhists started to use this in connection with this term bodhisattva, mahasattva, it refers to this sort of lion-heartedness, this sort of attitude of what it means to be a bodhisattva, is this courage and strength and nobility. I can go on about that, because nobility, we talk about, being noble, right? But we have to understand that in Indian culture, nobility is not a matter of just being that. This was one of the big counter-cultural things that the Buddha did, was that he talked about nobility being rooted in your character and practice, as opposed to your caste of birth. And so when we hear these things like the Four Noble Truths and the Eightfold Noble Path, we are kind of, this is lovely. But what we don't realize is that these were powerfully counterculture statements, because he was saying, if you do these things, you can be... Arya is the word that we translate as noble, which is, the same Aryan that Hitler used, the sort of master race sort of noble. By doing this practice, by behaving in this way, by becoming bodhisattvas, we become noble. And it's our character, and it's our conduct, and it's our relationships that make us noble. And this was really quite heretical for the caste system. Anyways, so this concept of lion and being a lion, and the lion being noble, and all of this kind of stuff is very important in Buddhism. And so the reason I wanted to talk about this is because the line that's been coming up for me is also about lions, but it's kind of odd. And when I first read it, I remember it really striking me, and it's never left me. And the saying is in the Brahma Net Sutra that there is no creature that will eat the flesh of a dead lion. The lion is only consumed by the worms from its own innards. And so the perspective or the context of this teaching is that while there is a community that is practicing together and upholding the Dharma, there is no external threat to that Sangha that can damage it. However, the thing that damages communities is disharmony within. That'll tear a community apart really quickly. And so this has been coming up for me a lot, because there's been a lot of doubt, self-doubt. There's been a lot of worry. And there's actually been some things that are much more negative going on. People telling stories about other community members without evidence that's causing harm. And I'm not going to get into any details about these things, because what I want to talk about is what's important. So this phrase, or this saying about the lion, no creature eating the flesh of the lion, comes from a sutra called the Brahma Net Sutra. And the title, the Brahma Net, refers to a metaphor for sort of all of the cosmos. And it predates Buddhism. And it's a metaphor or an image that all things in this cosmos are a part of Brahma's net. And Brahma is one of the sort of the highest deities in the sort of Indian pantheon. And so if we imagine a net or a spider web throughout the cosmos, and every existent thing, sentient or insentient, good or evil, anything that you can imagine, represents an intersection in this vast net of the cosmos, Brahma's net. And on each intersection of this net, there is a jewel, a multifaceted and innumerably faceted jewel at each of the intersections of all of these strands of this vast net. web. And each of those jewels reflects the light from all of the other jewels because it's so multifaceted. And each of those intersections, anywhere, even beyond the intersections, even the relationships or the strings between two intersections, between two jewels, we know that in any net or any web, if you sort of wiggle over here, the whole thing wiggles, right? We know this is how spiders sort of figure out what's in the net and where it is and all this kind of stuff. And so the point of this, the reason that the sutra is called this and the sutra is about ethics, is because we have to understand that we are all in relationship. We're all in this together. We're all intimately connected. And it's not just a metaphor. It is absolutely the truth. This is how the cosmos is. We're all intimately connected. We like to think, it's comforting to think, that the things that we do, for good or for bad, don't always impact people, don't always impact the circumstances, don't always impact the environment, the whole cosmos. This is why when, we're in the bathroom alone or something like this and we're cleaning our ears or something and we chuck the Q-tip and it sort of hits the garbage and bounces out. What do? Do we go like, well, no one saw that happen and maybe someone will think it's somebody else's Q-tip so I can walk out? Sure. And we think maybe we got away with it, or, we're being clever and we crumple up a thing of paper and we chuck it towards the garbage and it misses. Oh, well, no one knows it was me, so I'm just going to leave it for the janitor. We got a janitor anyway. They'll pick it up. But this is to fundamentally just deny our own part in all of the cosmos. It's to sort of cut ourselves out and say, well, maybe the things that I do or don't do, if nobody sees them or nobody hears them or nobody knows about them, maybe they don't impact. They don't have an impact. And at least my experience is this not true. And this is one of the big lies that we tell ourselves on a regular basis. And it's funny to me because it's one of the things that we really struggle with, I think, or many people struggle with, is sort of a feeling of balance between sort of our insignificance. We sometimes feel insignificant in the world. Or the other side is we feel like, we're the best damn thing there is in the cosmos, the only thing that there is in the cosmos. And usually when we're thinking about that, we're not thinking about the cosmos at all. We are everything. So, but the truth is, as we walk through this life and as we walk through our relationships and as we engage with all manner of people and all kinds of communities, we have a responsibility. And this is really what I want to talk about today, and in particular, the responsibility that we have as a community practicing Dharma together. And this is to really recognize that the way that we make relationship is important. And there are all kinds of guidances and policies and structures and all kinds of things that have been being put in place since the beginning of this practice together in community. There have been rules. There have been guidelines with how to conduct ourselves. And the tendency I think we had, and the Buddhists, everyone in all organizations always have, is when there's trouble, people say, we need some kind of a way to deal with trouble. So a bunch of really wise people get together and they say, we'll do this, and we'll do this, and we'll do this, and we'll lay down all this stuff for trouble. And they, this is a really good plan. And if there's an issue coming up, then they use that. They put the issue through the process, and maybe it works well, maybe it doesn't, maybe it's refined. And then things sort of smooth out, and then the sort of structure gets shelved. and we kind of forget it's there because it's like a net that we don't really need to use unless there's trouble. So for a long period of time, nothing happens. Everyone's really, getting along well, and structures are there, and we've got, every year we have a ceremony where we talk about the sila, and we have a fundamentals course where people go and we go over the sila. We have an ethics policy that occasionally gets reviewed by the ethics committee and stuff like that. But generally speaking, it's really difficult to keep these things in the front of your mind. We're not a monastic community, so we can't enjoy some of the benefits that the traditional Sangha did, which were things like every 10 days reciting the whole rule book, which was part of the original Buddhist Sangha. Every phase of the moon they would sit and chant together the whole set of rules for being in the monastic community, followed by a ceremony in which it would be sort of like our Tuesday circle, except in which every person who got the stick would then have to really think about if they'd violated any of the 200 rules, and if they had, they'd have to admit it and ask for guidance. And then it would go around again, and if you recalled anyone violating a sila that they hadn't spoken up about in the previous round, you could say, well, brother so-and-so, I do recall that you did this, and I'd like to really just talk about that, and we could go through this. Every 10 days we do this. We don't do that. So we get rusty. And I think that when something happens, we hear a rumor, or we have an issue or a concern about someone, we get anxious, and we get very personal about the offense, and we want to do something about it, but we don't really remember what to do because we're sort of operating in this place of hurt fundamentally, or fear, or anxiety, or any of the other difficult emotions. And those kinds of places to work out of are really difficult to work out of. So if we're in community together, and somebody comes to us with a concern, or somebody comes to us with a complaint, or somebody comes to us with a problem, and we're not in that emotional state, our responsibility is to help that person. Our responsibility, and I don't just mean, the person says, well, I heard Bob steals cars, or something like this, or, murders babies, or something like, well, let's burn Bob! That's not helping. Our job is to embrace the person and to help them meet a structure, or to meet the process of how to address the concern in a way which is of benefit to all beings, and particularly in the context of our community, to all members of our community, our Sangha. If there is a complaint from one member about another member, we have to understand that, is this a complaint that's external to the Zen center? Oh, this person's robbing banks, or this person's, doing whatever. Is that a crime? If so, we should probably talk to the police about that. This is a crime. We have ethics policy in Zen West, which deals with interpersonal, intermember relationship. My big hope is that when we hear something about another member as a member, that we don't immediately jump to conclusions, or that we don't immediately jump to guilt, or we don't jump to any kind of sort of blaming. I don't think that we should dismiss either. Some of the most important revelations have come, and they always seem unbelievable at the time. So I think that we really need to hold a neutral ground, but go with the process. Zen is a very interesting thing. This practice that we have is a very interesting thing. We sit together, and we come to a very still and quiet place. I always like to use this verse or comment from Case 5, which says, stops up the mouths of the monks and the demon eyeballs spurt forth from the skin. As we sit, all manner of shit comes up. All of our old demons and all of our old stuff and all of our old hurts and all of our old joys and everything. It's like if you've ever cleaned a bacon pan with a sponge or something like that, and then you wring it out and the goo, that's what sitting is like sometimes. And sometimes we're there and we deal with it and all kinds of stuff, and then we have these periods of grace. I don't know a better word, where things just flow and we're happy and every relationship that we have seems to be going tickety-boo. And the big challenge of that is that we think maybe we're done, there's no more grease left in the sponge or something like that. And then we round a corner and the next thing you know, bam, we're back in it, and it's like, whoa, man, I thought I was done with this stuff, but it's like a bad sequel or something like that. Another burst of goo comes squeezing out. And we do this in a group environment. And it's bad enough if this is happening on our own. But one of the things we do as humans, as our stuff is coming up, it's really easy, and I used to talk about this in the orientation class all the time because it often comes up right at the beginning of practice. Difficult stuff comes up. And our first response as human beings, and I think this is a very natural response as a mammal, is that we have an unpleasant experience going on, and so we look and we say, what's causing this? And we look around, and maybe you're doing something I don't like the way you're doing it. And it's really easy for me to make this connection and say, it's you! It happens in the positive direction too. I can, when I'm in that really nice place, I'm feeling loved and everything's connected, and I say, why is this so wonderful? I can look and I can say, it's you. And people do this to teachers all the time. I have a great experience at a retreat, and it's not because I have a wondrous heart, and it's not because I'm intimately connected with this relationship. And even if it is, it's because you showed me how. That can cause a lot of damage, that transference of emotion, of responsibility, shifting the responsibility outside of ourselves. When I was early in my training, this was one of the big transitions for me because I was having a lot of pain and I was having a lot of anger come up and I was having a lot of frustration and rage coming up. And there was a person who was beside me in the Zendo, which meant they were in front of me in the walking meditation line. And this person had a real challenge with walking in any kind of rhythm in Kinhin. And I had a moment in a sesshin where I caught my thinking genuinely and purposely plotting ways to physically injure that person in a serious enough way that they would be forced to leave the retreat. And I went, what the fuck am I thinking? So I had projected that anger and that frustration and all this stuff that was coming up. And I thought, offense-wise, the cause that I'm loading this with is like a 1.2 cause. And I'm loading it with a 12.8, death kind of a response, which is not okay. And I said, okay, well, maybe these feelings aren't coming from him. Maybe there's not a, causal relationship here. And maybe this is my shit, and I need to just sort of sit with it. Later on, much later in life, that person became one of my most dear practicing partners because of that. And because generally he was that way for a lot of people. And I think he had to be like a sponge for negative thought energy or something like that. Anyway, my point in all this is that the environment that we have on the outside, if a person walked in, and this is one of the big mistakes in practicing Zen, is you come into a meditation hall and you say, oh, it's so peaceful. Everyone's sitting there in meditation. But I think that if you could actually, I've always wanted to design like a reader that you could have a projection of what's going on inside, but also like meters for emotions and thoughts and stuff like this, that I could just, instead of carrying the kisaku, just hold it in front of a... The environment that we're in is volatile, extremely volatile. Occasionally there are these moments of tranquility and equanimity and all that kind of stuff. And sometimes they go on for a great while. But the reality is we're in a big stomach, and it's a kind of a hostile environment in which we are all digesting together. The other metaphor that's often used is it's like a bunch of sharp stones in a bag together, and we're sort of rattling that around, and each one of us is serving everybody else by just being in that environment together. The role of jikijitsu is a brutal one, because particularly in a sesshin, you're responsible to the time. And if you could amplify the ring the fucking bell mentality towards that person, or what a jerk that person is if they're carrying the kisaku or anything like that, we absorb that for the benefit of others, recognizing that they're not angry at me. There is anger. There is grief. And in this community, in interpersonal relationship, please make yourself comfortable, because I realize I'm so far over time that, I don't know. We need to recognize that every reaction that we have to every other person isn't always real. It isn't always them. It isn't always alarm-worthy. This is where we have to really trust the guides that we have, the safeties that we have in place, the policies that we establish, and the tradition. We really have to take the time to breathe, to explore, to investigate, and fundamentally to trust each other in practice and in community. Change is always going to happen. There's always going to be transitions. There's always going to be challenge. And if my experience is anything, there's always going to be people saying, you're not a real Buddhist. You're not a real community. You're not a real teacher. You're not a real this. You're not a good person. You're not all kinds of stuff. And our practice is to be with each other while we're exploring that together. So this recent period, I've been unstable. I'm going through a huge transition personally. I talk about this a lot, but I can't really express, I've always been known as a person who likes dress up. Ever since, I was a kid, I used to like dress up. But part of it for me is always understanding that who I am as a person is often reflected by how I'm dressed or what it is that I'm doing. I build character. So even recently, so I'm in this play right now, and we're getting really close, and it's starting to be like I start to take on the pieces of that in order to really clarify the character. For 10 years, I've been the abbot of Zenwest, and it's been my absolute policy with all ordained that we wear robes, we wear formal practice attire, and even before that in Zenwest, from the time that you come to this Zendo, you've got to have a practice uniform. We dress the part. So I have this new job, and that's absolutely one of the first things that was basically, they were very clear. We need you to come as a human being. This is scary, particularly for someone who's literally dying. I am the angel of death if I come in black flowing robes. This is not cool. So, I don't even know what that is. I go shopping, I buy clothing, and now I'm showing up. I'm having all of these problems with Viha because my legal name is Carl. And they seem to really have a difficulty with people wanting to be called something other than what's on it. So anyways, so there's all of this sort of identity stuff going on for me. Who am I? How do I manifest the Dharma as this new form? And I'm the spiritual leader of this community. So I'm sort of uneasy. I'm off kilter because I'm adjusting. Because I'm still supposed to come and be Eshu, Osho for the Dharma talks. It's very difficult. And I know that everyone relies on me to be the anchor, the stable root of this community. My commitment to practice is undiminished. I will be doing this practice, and I hope to be doing this practice here until the day I drop dead. In fact, as long as I remember, my objective is to drop dead in the Zendo. So I want you all to really feel that. I really want to express my commitment to all of you. But I also really need you to accept responsibility for practicing together as well. Do what you can to support one another. Do what you can to ensure that this practice is open and available and accessible to people, that it runs and is stable and all of those kinds of things, even and most especially when I am not. I need you. This period, my feeling is that this period is going to be really relatively brief. There's a transition going on. We have had a model for a decade that is predicated on having a full-time abbot leading things and taking care of things and all of that kind of stuff. And we've been doing that for a decade. But it's no longer the case. I'm not working full-time for Zenwest anymore. And so, as such, all of the programming that we have and all of the stuff that we've gotten really comfortable and familiar and love, it's going to change. And I can't say how yet. And I don't know what it's going to look like once everything settles. But we've got a group of people, the board, myself, the team leaders, and every member that's really trying to work to find out what this new model is together, to ensure that we're having our practice together, to make sure that we can have retreats and that we can have ceremonies and all of this kind of stuff together, but we don't know what that's going to look like. And in the short term, it's going to be, I think, a little bit volatile. It's going to be a little bit unstable, shaky. But my hope and my belief is that we're all strong enough, we're all familiar enough, we're all competent and confident enough to see this community through this transition. The externals, the change and the instability and all of that kind of stuff is not what's going to cause problems in this community. It's not what's going to tear things apart. Self-doubt, allowing our insecurities and our anxieties and our fears and our concerns to drive us into a sort of emotional response mode, to start voicing our suspicions and aversions and fears about people or the individual things that they're doing without any just cause. The worms inside are what's the danger. So my hope today is to encourage us all to embrace one another, to continue to let go of our fear, let go of our anxiety, let go of our shit, and embrace one another in spite of it all. Keep this community wholesome and healthy and nourishing. Thank you.
Thanks for listening to the Living Zen podcast. If you follow Living Zen through iTunes, I would very much appreciate it if you would take a moment to let me know what you think about it by rating or reviewing the podcast, so that new listeners can also hear what you have to say. Thank you for your time and for your support.